Hello everyone. Our presentation is on modern web application development. We are a team of 3 members. Ayush, Gupta, Chetan Nain, it's myself, and Rishabh Singhal. So our table of content will be, first we'll be giving an overview of the modern web applications. Then we'll move ahead with the architecture. Then we'll look at the project scheme of a sample web application. And finally, we'll conclude on the uses of performance and how how modern web architecture is useful in today's world, and how it has increased the speed multiple times and has increased the user comfort. So in the introduction, as we know that the modern web architecture consists of a three-tier architecture in which at the very core and to the base is the database. Now, when we talk about database is further divided into two major subcategories. One is NoSQL database and the other one is an SQL database. Now, in NoSQL database, the top NoSQL database that is presently available in the market is MongoDB. And again, the most prominent and the well-known SQL, that is relational database that's available, is MySQL. So we will be using the MongoDB and we will be hosting it onto the MongoDB cloud by using Mongo Atlas. And for MySQL, we will be using Amazon RDS database. So for hosting the, even in the MySQL, we will be using only those data that we know will not grow much. For example, we know that in an application where we have user data available with us, and suppose if users are interacting within themselves, so that data can increase multiple times if the interaction increases between the users. So that interaction data, for example, message being passed, message stored, that will be stored into the MongoDB, whereas only the user's respective data will be stored in MySQL, which can be used for user authentication and user login. We are also using Redis, that is the in-memory data structure storage, which can be used for caching purpose. Apart from that, talking about the backend, where we are using PHP as the backend for making our APIs, and this backend will be used in sync with Kafka and its respective zookeeper. So Kafka is a messaging queue service which will help us in scaling our backend. Also, it will also with the use of broker, even if any of our server goes down, the front end user will not be affected by it much. And lastly, the client, our client will be React, will be used with React and Redux, and that will be used for front end management. Now, a rough architecture that can be seen is onto the screen. So in front end, we are using HTML, CSS. That is the HTML file that is available, the latest version, and we have CSS. It is used in accordance with React. Now this request will be passed on to the load balancer. Now here we are using AWS load balancer. We will be mostly configuring it using the Amazon guidelines, and we'll configure it with 3 backend servers. And on the backend, we will be having PHP with Kafka. So this our server will be in this. There will be a primary user, a primary server, which will have the user data, the primarily. And if that goes down, there will be multiple replicas, the 2 other replicas of that server. So if one server goes down, the user will be able to access the data from the other 2 servers and complete his request without even knowing that a server has failed. Now this request will go to the database where his respective data will be stored into MongoDB and MySQL. And for fast caching, we will have used Redis as well. Now, moving ahead, This is a sample architecture, sample schema of one of the applications. For example, if we talk about, say, uh, the LinkedIn, suppose, for example, we have LinkedIn onto the available. So this architecture, this database schema is a sample schema that can be prepared. So in this, we have company information in one of the tables, which will use store all the company primary information. For example, company's vision, company mission. This will again have pictures of those companies. So it will be linked on the basis of ID. Similarly, it will be having a company table. So company table will only store very basic primary information of the primary of the table of the company, usually company ID, company name, company employee, who is managing this company, company's profile, and every company will have their corresponding reviews. So the review will be having a separate table, which will be storing the review ID and who has given that reviews. Similarly, the jobs that are posted by the company will be come under the job table, and the user who is user table will again be subdivided into two tables. The green table that are shown onto the screen is MySQL tables, which will be a relational table, whereas the blue tables will be a NoSQL table, which is on MongoDB. Similarly, we have user details table, which we have kept in MongoDB, but the green table that is only used for authentication purpose. And in the chat system that we have available in LinkedIn, we will be having inbox, and we will be having messaging queue, messages available, so that is being used by the user to interact within themselves. So this is a rough architecture. Now, how a load balancer will perform. For example, if we are using load balancers, so how this load balancer performance will go up. And so when we had only one of the backend servers available with us, the throughput was approximately 2000 requests per second. But as and when we increased it to 3 servers, it was crossing 15,000 requests per second. Similarly, when we increased the server to 4, the throughput increased even further, and it crossed 20,000 requests per second. So that's how the load balancer has helped us in fulfilling the client request, even with such a higher rate, such a higher load, and the throughput also increased subsequently. So it's kind of, as you can see, it's worth implementing load balancer and increasing the server. Lastly, the conclusion that is that when we populated the database with 10,000 reviews and test various database system strategies, that is by one tier, by using only one server, two server, and then we hit the get API. So the graph that we have plotted previously is of the get APIs. So of the reviews. So the review table was the biggest table, and we wanted to test according to that. So this is the output that we have got. And from the graph, we can conclude that there is a significant improvement in the performance as we have introduced caching and the load balancers are increased. Similarly, the Kafka have also helped us in increasing the throughput, and this is how modern web applications in today's world are functioning. So this is what I would like to present for my view. Now I like to pass on to the for the next topic to Rishabh Singhal. Rishabh, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. Let me take over. Let me share my screen. Can you stop sharing, Chetan? Then only I can share.
Yeah, stop.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it's visible.
So, okay. So I will be discussing about the difference between the React and Angular and which would be better in terms of front-end technologies, because these are two popular technologies which is going on right now. So yeah, so React is a JavaScript library that is used to build the UI components, and it has been created by a software engineer at Facebook named Jordan Walk. And with respect to Angular, Angular is also a same JavaScript library. It is created by Google, and it also supports MVC pattern. But React doesn't support MVC pattern; it only supports the view pattern. So some of the differences we have with respect to React and Angular are the developer is Google for Angular and Facebook for React, and the technology type, as I discussed, like Angular is a full-fledged MVC pattern, Facebook full-fledged MVC pattern that follows Angular follows, but React is just a view library. With respect to concept, Angular is JavaScript. Sorry, it's a TypeScript plus HTML, and it works with the real DOM client-side rendering. And with respect to React, it's JavaScript plus GSX with respect to virtual DOM. So React doesn't use the real DOM. It uses the virtual DOM for the minor updates. Then it patches all the updates. Then it will update to the real DOM. That's why the React is very fast. With respect to data binding, Angular is a two-way data binding and React is a one-way. And dependencies, like we have to manage. With Angular, we have to, automatically the dependencies will be managed, but with React, we have to manually manage the dependencies. We have to do some additional. We have to require some additional tools to manage the dependencies. React latest version is Angular 9, and I guess sorry, Angular latest version is 9, and React is I believe like 17. It's not 16.8, it's 17. Angular is best suits for like full-fledged application for a single view, but for the multi-view, React is popular. It's very fast. Now let's come to the Google Trends. So as we can see, from 2014 to till 2018, slowly and steadily React is getting popular. Earlier, Angular was popular, but as now as we can see, according to the Google Trends, React is getting popular day by day. Now, as we can see the Stack Overflow trend as well. So from 2014 to 2020, as we can see, the React is like getting popular year by year, and Angular is like getting slower year by year. So the popularity of React is like increasing very fast. Now comes, so what all companies uses React and Angular. So as we know, React has been created by Facebook. So all the Facebook applications must be created by React. So like Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and Airbnb also uses React. Netflix, as we know, uses React heavily. Angular, Google created React. Sorry, Angular. So of course, Google will be using Angular. Some of other companies like Nike, Sony, General Motors, Upwork uses React. Sorry, Angular now. Now, yeah. So some of the comparison we will do with respect to React and Angular are componentization, data binding, performance, dependency resolutions, self-sufficiency, learning curve, community, like which community is better with terms of React and Angular, what testing tools we can use, and what are the major updates. Now let's go one by step. So with respect to componentization, like React is, sorry, Angular is very complex because it follow based on 3 layers: model, view, and controller, and it modularize our application. About React is just a view library, so it doesn't have any pattern, it doesn't have any correct structure, and also React uses Flux and Redux architecture. Yeah, and also React uses GSX syntax. It's very similar to HTML, and so it's very, if someone knows HTML, so it's very easy to create component using React. And we also have any freedom to use additional libraries like router library and any UI library. If I want to use any state management I want to use with React, I can use that. But with Angular, it's like a whole framework, so I cannot use any additional library with Angular. So that is a drawback. So now comes to data binding. As we discussed, like, Angular is a two-way data binding, and we don't need to write extra code to track the changes because Angular is whole framework. It has everything in it. but it creates a negative impact on performance because it's a framework, so it takes a time. Now, with respect to React is a one-way data binding, and because of that, so whenever a data is changing, we can easily see that. So it really reduce the complexity with respect to data binding. Now I'll show the diagram how it works. So whenever we trigger an event in React component for at the action creator, it will go to the action creator. Now the action creator will create an action with the type and the payload we give. Now it will go to the reducer. So reducer is a pure function. So whatever payload we give and will according to the type, it will update. It will update the state, and then it will go to the store. So store is like a major hub we have in which we have all the states. So once the state update has been done in reducer, it will go to the store and it will update the updated state. It will update with the updated state, and all the components are subscribed with the store. So once the store has been updated, all the UI will get re-render and it will the update state. Now comes with the performance. So Angular relies on two-way data binding. So the performance we it would be very painful because the concept is like we have to do a dirty checking mechanism on Angular, and since it works with the real DOM, so if we are doing updates like frequently, it will take time to reflect the updates because we are dealing with the real DOM here. With respect to React uses virtual DOM, so it's very fast. So assuming I'm doing, let's suppose I'm clicking a button simultaneously multiple times within a second. So it won't go to the real DOM at first. First of all, it will create a different. It will create a copy of the real DOM, and it will see the what major changes I have done here in the main real DOM. So it will create a copy like a virtual DOMs. Then it will see what all changes I have done, and then it will combine all those changes into the virtual DOM. Then it will only one time it will affect the real DOM, not the multiple times. So in that way, it's very fast. Now come with the resolving dependencies. We only pass dependencies as a parameter in any order in our functions with the respect to Angular, but with respect to React, there's no such concept of resolving dependencies. We can implement it like using tools such as require.js and so on. So the only challenge here is like which tool to pick. So it's totally upon the developer and upon the business requirements. Self-sufficiency. So Angular is a full-fledged framework, as I told you earlier. So we do not need any additional libraries for that. All the functions, all the data bindings, component-based routing, validations, dependency injection can be implemented with the Angular package itself. But when we comes with React is just a UI development library. So for state management, for routing, we need additional packages. For security, we need additional packages like Helmet, React Helmet. For state management, we can use like Redux. We can use uh, React Context. With respect to routing, we can use React Router. And some if I want like additional, if I want validations, I can use. So there are some additional libraries I can use with respect to React. So uh, yeah, so React is just a UI library. If any other thing I need to do, I have to install a package for that. So learning curve for Angular is really huge because it's a framework. So there are so many things needs to be learned. But with respect to React, it's like very simple. You can easily learn within 2 days, because if you know HTML, you can easily learn that. But Angular is like more complicated. There's so many boilerplate needs to be learned first of all. Then only we can work with Angular. As I told, React is very simple, and yeah, we can easily learn that. So with respect to community, yeah, because Angular is very old, so Angular has very large community, and because Angular started from Angular 1.0 till Angular 9, so it has a large community. So developer used to dismiss the framework as overly complicated. Now, when it comes to React, React is getting popular day by day. So it is like taking the community. It is the community is really growing. So there we can see a lot of changes, and but the documentation like, we are lacking in that. But like React is like Facebook doing a lot of changes in documentation as well, and like we can see a major update.
Thank you, Rishabh, for your presentation.
Okay, yeah, just I guess we have only two things left. Let me just cover it fast. With respect to testing, we can use with Angular, we can use like testing tools like Jasmine, Proctor, and Karma. With respect to React, we can use React testing library. We can use Enzyme. Has been developed by Airbnb, and that's really good. With respect to updates, with the Angular we can do updates like we can just if you want to update my Angular, I can only do ng underscore update, and if I want to install React, I can do npm install. So like when to consider Angular, when to consider React. So it totally depends on a project requirement, like which technology to use, and totally depends on like how large our application would be, and like the background of developers as well. So because like if anyone knows Java, C Sharp, so Angular would be much better. If anyone knows JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, then React would be much better. And React is easy to learn as well. So these are all the differences React versus Angular has, and like both of the technologies are really good, but it totally depends on the developer's perspective, like which one to use. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishabh. Now I will be
Let me stop sharing.
present. Yeah, sure. So, hello, Professor. I will be presenting my presentation on the full stack developer. Like, what are the things which we need to become a full stack developer and what exactly that means. So, basically, a full stack developer is someone which has the ability to work on the different layers of software development. For example, like for an standard web application, there are three layers. One is presentation layer, one is business layer, and last one is the database layer. So it's not necessary that full stack developers are expert on everything, like they are not expert on every layer, but they know how to work with all of them. uh, so generally the main areas of the full stack developer focuses on two main things. One is the front end development, and one is the back end development, and then there is a database thing. So for example, in a database, in a front end development, it is front end development is like the focused on the client size, like whatever visible on the website, it comes under the front end development. So basically it comes under the presentation layer. Now there are multiple technologies which we use to for front end development. So there is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then the React, like what Rishabh told us. So these all technologies are used to develop the front end side of the application. Now, so React and the Angular are the most popular framework currently running. They both are built on the top of the JavaScript. Coming to the backend development, it's the concern with the server side management. So it's handling between the browsers and the database. For example, from the browser we are sending an API to fetch any results, and then the backend development will handle that request. Will send the request to fetch any data from the database, and then correspondingly will send all the result back to the client side. So this development is related to the business layer and the database layer. So the most popular backend languages currently are Node.js and Python. Now coming back to what are the key things which we need to become a full stack developer. So a qualified full stack developer should have this functional knowledge and capabilities so that he can build the application. So one of the thing is programming language. He needs to be proficient in multiple programming languages. For example, if I am a full stack developer and I am handling the client side which is built on the JavaScript, while on the backend side which is built on the Java or the Python, so I need to have knowledge of more than one language. So uh, the technologies which currently are popular in the programming languages are HTML5, CSS, then the AngularJS framework, .NET, and MySQL for DB. Now coming back to the second thing. So use development framework and third-party libraries. It is essential for for a full stack developer to have the knowledge of how to work with the third-party libraries and the development frameworks like Java's Spring Boot, React, Angular, uh, Node.js, Express. So this kind of um, you need to know how to use these frameworks efficiently so that you are able to build the application with them. Now, the third thing which we need is a front-end technology. So for front-end technology, we have the frameworks like React and Angular, as well as the basic front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, last one of the thing is database. So database and cache. For any product or a project, we needs to store the data. We will need the database. So if we want a non-SQL or database, we can use MongoDB, which is effectively used for internet products where we need scalability and availability. While for any application where we need consistency and security, we recommend to use MySQL or other relational database. While there is also option to use in-memory database such as Redis, which are used basically for the cache, so that it will improve our system performance efficiently if we keep the data in Redis, which is frequently used by the users. Now, for a full stack developer, it is essential that he knows how to design the system, the basic design ability he should have. So these are the principal skills which a full stack developer needs to effectively fulfill his responsibilities. So that's it from my side. Thank you, guys.